Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain. Every year, hundreds of climbers, both professional and amateur, successfully reach the top. At any one time in the climbing season, there are over 1,000 people making the attempt. Behind virtually every endeavor lies the support and expertise of the Sherpas, the unsung heroes of the mountain. They guide, carry the equipment, prepare the routes, and rescue climbers who get into difficulty, every day risking their own lives so that others can claim the glory. Without them, only the hardiest and most skilled mountaineers would succeed. This is their story. And it's been this way since the very first attempts to climb the mountain. In 1922, the first ever expedition to make a full-scale attempt to climb Everest was made by the British, among them George Mallory. Of the 160 men who made up the team, only 13 were British. Mallory was caught in an avalanche on the North Col. 7 of his Sherpas were killed, the first ever recorded deaths on Mount Everest. Two years later, the team tried again. This time, with Mallory was Oxford student Andrew Irvine. On June the 6th, Mallory and Irvine set off with 5 Sherpas. The Sherpas all returned safely, but Mallory and Irvine vanished. Whether they reached the top 29 years before Hillary and Norgay has been the subject of heated debate ever since. To try and establish the pair's fate, in 1999 an international expedition set out to locate their bodies. Among them was Jochen Hemleb. On the very first day, a mummified body was found on a steep slope. It had to be Irvine or Mallory. A clothes tag brought certainty.
Here, wait, this is George Mallory. Really? George Mallory. Oh my God! See that? George Mallory. Oh my God!
The search continued, but the team were unable to locate Irvine's body. In 2010, another expedition launched the search for Andrew Irvine. It was led by Theo Fritsche, a highly experienced mountaineer who has climbed 5 of the 14 8,000-meter peaks, and once again, alpine historian Jochen Hemleb.
Many believe that Mallory and Irvine were unable to overcome the most difficult part of their route, the so-called second step, a 40-meter face at 8,600 meters. However, our expedition member Theo Fritsche climbed that passage solo, without rope, in 2001. He thinks that this must have also been possible for Mallory and Irvine.
Fritsche wanted to establish whether Mallory and Irvine could have reached the summit with only the equipment that was available at the time.
In 2001, I approached Everest in simple clothing, with just an emergency down jacket in my pack and no additional oxygen. I wanted to climb the mountain with fair means. From what I know today, Mallory or Irvine, at least one of them, may have been on the summit.
Zumindest einer von diesen auf dem Gipfel gewesen sein kann.
The 2010 expedition failed due to bad weather. Now, just 1 year later, Theo Fritsche and Jochen Hemleb are taking another shot. And it is for this reason that they have hired Perba, Nima Tenji, Nima and Gelu. The 4 Sherpas will search for Irvine's body near Everest's peak. The Sherpa word for Everest is Komolungma, goddess mother of the world. So many choose to live high in the mountains above 3,000 meters, as close to the seat of the gods as possible. And for them, hard work in the fields is their perpetual high-altitude training. Sherpas breathe more efficiently at high altitude. Their pulmonary blood pressure rises less than that of other climbers. Scientific studies have found that Sherpas have at least 10 genes specifically adapted to high-altitude living. At 4,000 meters, the reduced air pressure provides 40% less oxygen than at sea level. This can lead to an accumulation of fluid in the lungs, which results in high-altitude sickness and death. But the Sherpa's genetic structure reduces these effects at high altitudes. This makes them invaluable for any attempt on Everest. Nevertheless, the Sherpas, along with the rest of the team, must spend several weeks acclimatizing themselves. So they set off on a trek for Island Peak, a gentler climb, much favored by less. As part of their final preparations and acclimatization for the ascent of Everest, the expedition first climbs Island Peak, so named in 1951 by the British mountaineer Eric Shipton. Although the peak is at 6,000 meters, it's a relatively easy climb and a popular destination for trekkers, as well as an acclimatization exercise for more serious climbers. The ascent of Island Peak is basically just a hike up to High Camp, followed by a more difficult climb from there to the peak. It's little more than a walk in the park for a Sherpa like Nima Tenji. Everest presents a much tougher challenge. But as with all Sherpas, his client's safety is paramount, regardless of any risk to himself.
I've been working in the expedition business for 8 years now. Since 2004, I have climbed Mount Everest 6 times from the Tibetan side and twice from the south. On Shisha Pangma, I was twice. In our work, it's important to not just get our clients to the top, but also safely back down. I hope we can do that again this time.
All attempts on the southern route up Everest start in Kathmandu, and from there fly to Lukla. The airport is arguably the world's most dangerous. At the north end of the runway are mountains, and at the other end a 600-meter drop into the valleys below. The pilot gets only one chance. Going around again is not an option. The expedition has reached North Base Camp in Tibet. This is the first stage of the northern route up Mount Everest, and the one taken by Irvine and Mallory. Vehicle access is possible here, unlike South Base Camp. Supplies are brought in by truck, then transferred to yaks for the onward journey up the mountain. The third Sherpa, Nima, supervises the loading of the yaks for the next leg of the climb. It will take them to the base of the North Col, at 6,400 meters. Tact and savvy are needed in these negotiations. Every time they weigh the loads, the Tibetan aides come up with different results. Finally, all the pieces have been weighed and all differences cleared up. Now the yaks can be loaded for the ascent to the ABC, the Advanced Base Camp. As always, the Sherpas will look after their clients well during the ascent. A complete kitchen, including gas bottles and food for a month, is loaded, and the yak caravan sets off. Past the seracs, impressive ice formations, they climb from 5,300 to 6,400 meters. Once there, the Sherpas will set up a camp where the expedition members will stay for around a month, depending on weather conditions. They will set up the tents, cook, and wash up for their clients. The expedition is preparing to leave Advance Base Camp. To reach Camp 4, they must climb the glacier to the foot of the North Col, which is over 7,000 meters high. Before they set out, a lama recites prayers for protection, wishing good to all men and averting harm to the expedition members. Gelu was the last to join the team. He is a highly valued member because he also took part in the 2010 search expedition for Irvine's body. Figures made of ghee, butter lard, are placed among the rocks that bear an image of Buddha. Then the Sherpas hang prayer flags in all 4 wind directions. A handful of sampa completes the ceremony. This is a final supplication for protection. The team that will search for the body of Andrew Irvine is snowed in at the Advanced Base Camp at 6,400 meters. Although the sun is out now, there has been fresh snowfall every day, preventing an ascent to the search area. The climbers try to pass the time by planning the next stage of the expedition. Their thoughts center around the question of which route Irvine might have chosen.
Der Hintergrund unserer Suchstrategie nach Andrew Irvines Leiche.
Our search strategy is based on the fact that Irvine's body has been seen once with certainty, but possibly 3 times.
Bereits aber auch 3-mal gesichtet wurde.
The most credible report, in my opinion, is that of a Chinese climber, Chu Qing, who in 1960 saw a body near the ridge which can only have been Irvine's. Since at that time, Mallory and Irvine were the only ones missing in that area.
Trying to put themselves in Irvine's shoes, the climbers hoped to work out the route he was taking back down the mountain before he disappeared.
Also ich kann mir ganz gut vorstellen, aufgrund der Erschöpfung, aufgrund dessen, dass
I can well imagine that, in a state of exhaustion, one could miss a correct turn and would then simply continue in the hope of finding a rock crevice.
Dann gerade weitergeht in der Hoffnung, wenn man dann eine
some rock crevice to spend the night, or just to survive. I suggest we climb up the normal route to the ridge, like we did last year. Then follow the ridge downward and search close to the ridge line.
Und dort möglichst dicht an der Gradlinie suchen.
It's not just the snow that is holding back the team. The summit of Everest is the dividing line between China and Nepal. Ascending via the southern route requires a permit from only the Nepalese, but Mallory and Irvine had taken the northern route. This route passes through Chinese territory, and a permit is required from their authorities. For 3 weeks, the expedition is condemned to wait until the Chinese authorities have prepared the route. At long last, the wait ends, the weather clears, and the Sherpas can start for the North Col at 7,100 meters. Once there, they will set up camp with everything they need for the search. They have a steep climb ahead of them. But in spite of the altitude, the Sherpas move incredibly fast. Each of them carries 25 kilos. Regardless of the thin air and an ascent of 700 meters, they only take 2 hours. On arrival on the North Col, there's no time to rest. At this height, the weather can change instantly. The Sherpas have to prepare the campsite without delay. Around 7,000 meters, the camp is in a zone where it can be hit by jet streams. Although the sun is still shining, the first gusts of wind are making their work difficult. By nightfall, the wind has calmed down, a welcome surprise. In the advanced base camp, everyone is busy. While the Sherpas plan the next day's search, the first climbers, ant-like, are already on their way to the summit. The new morning brings bright weather, but Charlie Gabel, the Austrian meteorologist, has warned the climbers of strong winds over the next few days. But the Sherpas are not put off. Along the ascent route to the 2 highest camps, traffic is heavy. Other climbers have taken advantage of the fine weather and are already on the way back down. Through his telescope, Jochen Hemleb watches the ascent of the search team to Camp 6 at 8,300 meters.
Das schwierigste Teil ist das ganze Umfeld, dieses...
The greatest challenge is the environment. Sleeping in a tent at 38, 40 degrees centigrade below zero. In Camp 6, even the melting of snow is a problem. To get 1 liter of water, it takes 1 to 1.5 hours. Putting on a pair of expedition shoes can take more than an hour. And then you still have to strap on the crampons. For most people, this is difficult to imagine.
Und das bei dieser Kälte, das ist einfach für viele unvorstellbar. Kilo, von Theo bitte kommen. Kilo, bitte kommen.
Theo is trying to contact Gelu. But it soon becomes clear that the Sherpas have started a day too late. Piercing gusts and the biting cold force them back into their tents.
Ich hab dich leider nicht verstanden, bitte antworten.
Communication is all but impossible. Again, the wind drives in the fog, covering the mountain. But the Sherpas refuse to give up hope. Again and again, they discuss the search route.
So it's very strong windy. With the wind is a little bit less, and we try to go off at 5.
Just in time, the wind does calm down. The Sherpas set out for the search area at 8,500 meters. It's already their second day in the death zone. With only limited time left, they search the rocky, icy slopes, step by step.
Wäre es möglich, dass ihr alle 4 zusammen den Grat absuchen würden? Bitte antworten.
Following Theo's advice, the 4 of them focus on the ridge. It's steep here. Oxygen masks and snow goggles limit visibility. The 4 search for several hours. Then the storm starts up again and forces them back.
The search this year was better, more precise than last year. We were like a family, and the teamwork was really special. We have not found Irvine, but we have gained experience. One thing is clear, Irvine is not in this area.
The Sherpas have done their best. But with so many rock crevices and snow drifts to conceal a body, Mount Everest could hold its secret forever. The expedition over, the 4 Sherpas fade quietly into the background. After 6 months, Perber can finally see his little boy.